listen to the recording because they couldn't be here. Okay, so who asked a question? Who was that just
This is just a question on how big a pot do you need? Because I'm used to, you know, being able to stack as they grow, right?
Yeah, you don't stack what as you grow? Stack the potatoes? Are you talking about?
No, just stack bin boards and more dirt and so forth. So I'm just wondering, how big a pot do you start with if you're working with a container?
Well, the size that, I mean, it depends on what you have, but the guy that does it puts them in a 7-gallon pot. And he's in the UK, so we don't really have those 7. So he's recommending a 10-gallon. So they're big pots, and he only puts 2 potatoes.
Chat function. Oh, I'm sorry.
But you'll see that, and he grows a lot of potatoes in that. And so if you plant more potatoes in those big pots, then you will get a lot of little potatoes instead of bigger potatoes. But if you have like a 5-gallon bucket, he says just put 1 potato in that. Okay, so let's see. We just have, I don't see anybody new coming in. So, well, here's Charlie.
Hi, everybody.
Charlie. Hi, Charlie.
Frank Amirda.
Yeah.
Hi, Sue.
So let's see what everybody who has dinner, let's see what everybody's eating here. We don't even do that at the live potlucks, but you know.
That's really fun.
Oh, that looks good, Mary. Yum. Look,
Yeah.
She's got microgreens on her salad that she grew.
Yeah, on the phone I can. But I have it on mute. So
okay. Oh, now I hear you.
There's Mary.
Who's I just talked? Was that you, Amy? Talk.
Can you hear us, Delisa?
Yes.
Okay. I made your cheesy potatoes and added rosemary, which is an herb that I have used in my favorite scallop potatoes. It added nicely.
Okay, good. Well, it's whatever you did, now we can use it. So you figured it out.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Maria's in the background making us bok choy.
Okay.
Stir-fry bok choy, which looks beautiful. And then I have some Indian sweet potatoes and dal and brown rice. Plus, we're sampling your cheese recipes, Delisa, because that worked out for me.
Oh, great. So what kind of cheese did you make?
The cheddar pepper one, and then the dill and onion.
Okay. Have you tried them yet? Are you just sampling them for the first time?
Oh, they're good. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, the cheddar pepper one's almost gone.
That's really good. Well, here's a toast. I'm drinking kefir.
Oh, good. Good.
So here's to our AVS get-together where we all get to enjoy each other's company, even if we're doing it at our own homes.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about kefir?
Sure.
So when I took the class there and started doing the kefir water, I had so much kefir that I started freezing it. And I pulled some out of the freezer and tried to restart it, and it wouldn't restart. So
you're
kind of wondering.
You're talking about the grains.
Yes.
Well,
what would make them
I've
not
always been able to start them again. I just put them back in sugar water.
Well, here's something. I reread the instructions. Would it have been because I bought a really fine metal strainer that the kefir grains couldn't go through instead of using the plastic, that funnel you guys gave us?
Yeah.
Would that have killed them?
The instructions always tell you not to use metal, and so I never did. So I don't know whether that could be. But if it was working,
it's really good.
If it was working while you were making the kefir,
yeah, it was.
Quit working.
Huh.
Well, if you want to pick up another some from me. I've been freezing mine, and I've got extra because mine has been very prolific.
I have a couple of more bags in the freezer. I will try what I have, and if they're all dead, maybe I'll hit you up.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Okay. Anybody else want to show us your dinner?
We show.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that does look good.
Nice recipe, Lisa.
Yeah, well, good. And Mary, you've got several courses there, it looks like. What is on that little tray with the little balls?
So these are the bean balls.
Oh,
Bean balls.
bean balls. Okay.
Yeah.
Are they good?
Are they what? Pardon me?
Are they good?
Yes. Yes. So I ate several, and that's why I'm not hungry. I made them this afternoon.
Well, that would do it. You're supposed to put them in the freezer, remember? Take out
Yeah.
one at a time.
Yeah. Still, and yeah. So I struggle because I'm kind of doing, pardon me, everybody. I just wanted to do it. Oh.
Okay. Well, it looks like you're having a feast there. Oh, Kristen just popped in. Except we can't see her real face. We see her picture of her. Hi, Kristen.
Hi, Kristen. Oh, sure.
Hi.
Hey. So are you going to turn your camera on so we can see you?
I will in just a minute. I'm going to be running back and forth, getting my food on my plate, and then I'll sit down and I'll turn it on.
Very good. Well, I didn't show you. I showed you the salad, but this is our dancing carrot soup, curried soup from the cookbook. Yummy.
Yep.
Okay. Well, so
Mine isn't on a plate, but it's black beans with carrots and basil from my next door neighbor. So yeah, I'm really lucky. I live literally a 5-minute walk from an organic farm.
Oh, wow.
Well, that's nice.
You are lucky. And those of us who don't live near that, we may have a couple of minutes walk to an organic garden.
Yeah, mine is not quite ready for eating yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except the sorrel. The sorrel is up, but that's about it.
Mhm. Well, we haven't been eating out of ours yet, but everything is bigger than usual for this time of year. So I think we'll be eating
This is a lot.
earlier than usual out of the garden. So we've got such great weather. Man, can't beat it. So what's everybody been doing? Let's catch up with each other. You haven't taken any big trips, right?
To the grocery store.
You went to the grocery store? Yeah. Yes, when we do that, we talk about, well, it's time for a field trip. We took a drive out to get some the compost from the Susitna Organics place, and that was exciting.
We went to a potato farm today. That was really exciting. It's everywhere, but they were already in sacks.
Mm-hmm. And that was, you were talking about the Dearborn farm in Palmer?
Yes, yes.
That's great.
But that's been our major field trip for 2 months.
Make sure that your collar looks right.
Yeah. So where is that farm? Is that over by the university?
It's on Trunk Road. If you come from Chuviak and turn onto Trunk Road, it's just past the first roundabout. And you're going north, you actually have to make a U-turn, come back just a little bit, and then it's off the road. There's a South Trunk Road that parallels that new road.
Yeah, it's over there by the experimental farm. Well, that's good. We'll have to get some there next year, maybe. We got ours at Alaska Mill and Feed, and they only had them in 5-pound bags, so we got 2 different kinds, 2 5-pound bags, but we'll just eat the rest of them that we don't need because
Right.
we only planted 20 potatoes. So 2 in, well, pretty much, maybe I can't remember exactly because I had some bigger pots and some medium pots and some smaller pots. So some had just 1 potato and some had 2, and a couple of really big ones had 3. And
So Delisa, you plant this is Sherry. You plant the whole potato, not just an eye?
Yes, but if I had a great big potato that had a lot of eyes, I might do that. But I don't want to just plant it with just a little part of the potato because I want it to have plenty of food. You know, one thing I've never done before, but the guy that we're going to watch a little video clip of this guy that's just expert. He likes to get bigger potatoes, and I'm not necessarily looking for bigger potatoes. I mean, I don't want them to be too little, but he actually removes most of the eyes on the potato and just has like 1 or 2 big eyes, and then he plants the potato. And I didn't do that. I left all the eyes on, but I think he does that as a way to have all of that food of the potato going into, you know, 1 eye so that it grows bigger potatoes. So he does that. I did not try doing that because I kind of like them to be, you know, not huge, but not tiny. So we'll find out. It's an experiment every year. Oh, Haryatma is here. Hello.
Yeah. Hi.
Can't see you.
Yeah, I don't know. I usually can be seen. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing myself.
Do you have your video turned on? If you look at the bottom, it says start video and stop video.
There I am. Yep.
There you go. Hello.
Okay.
You can't see me well because the lighting's bad. There.
Yeah. It's not bad. We're all sitting here eating. Are you eating?
No, not eating. Drinking water.
I have plenty at my place.
Yes, Anthony's got enough for several. Yeah. Only problem is she's in Fairbanks.
So this is what I'm hoping to find out tonight is that, so I'm going to use these, have several, but I only really have 1 pot left, sort of, and supposed to bury everything down deep with the sprouts.
Yep.
No,
Sprouts,
I don't.
and they'll climb their way up to the top.
Okay.
Yep. And with the bigger sprouts on it, they'll be faster coming up than if they don't have a big sprout. So how many pots are you going to plant? Just 1?
Me, well, I have about 21 pots and planters and everything because I don't have the in-ground at this. So yeah, I really have just 2 left.
Okay. How big are they?
Are
they great big
about
pots?
on the black one, and the other one I was going to ask you. It's the coconut. I don't know how it's pronounced, but the coconut liner. Big, but it's not all that deep. I was wondering. That's the only other thing I happen to have at the time.
Oh, is that right?
But it doesn't have a pot around it. It's just the coconut core.
And yeah.
Well, I'd be a little concerned about that. You have nothing to lose by trying it, but I think you'd have a hard time keeping moisture in it because the potatoes need water. So maybe you could put something around it. Is it in one of those metal basket things?
Not even. This one is not even in a metal basket thing.
Well, what's holding it together?
Nothing.
Nothing? Well, if you put a bunch of dirt in it, isn't it all going to just slough out?
So I have a bunch of rocks. I actually have a lot of extra pots, but they've had rocks in them that I think may leach like radioactive elements or something into the soil. So I don't want to use those.
Okay.
Long story, rocks on top. So that's all I have.
Okay.
Well, like I say, if you have some soil to put in them, you can always experiment. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then oh well.
Thank you.
Yeah, but at least you have one pot that sounds like a real pot.
Call from Cassidy Joe.
It's not every day that you get together and talk about pot with all your friends. I talk about pot with, maybe you do. Big pots, little pots, medium pots. How much can you put in a pot? I think a lot of people who have tried this system, I've heard of this before, but I didn't know any, official way to do it. But I heard some people would put some potatoes in a pot and then they'd put some soil on top of it and then they'd put some more potatoes on and then some more soil and some more. And I don't think that would work very well. I think you'd end up with almost nothing because they need a lot of space. So that is not the way to do it. So anyway, yeah. So we'll get to watch a really nice little video that shows how to do it, but also why to do it, which I think is a good thing to learn. The reason why we're doing it this year, we grow potatoes every year and we always have grown them in the ground. And ours have been having potato scab on them, and not so bad that we couldn't eat them, but we kept having the scab. And I thought, well, I don't know if it's a virus or a bacteria. I don't think it's COVID. But anyway, I think it gets in the soil so that if you put new potatoes in, then they can catch it. So anyway, and I've grown the potatoes in different beds. I have several different beds. And so I thought, okay, well, I've already got the virus or the bacteria, whatever it is, already in all the beds. So what am I going to do? So I decided, and I like the potatoes that we grow every year, the varieties that we grew, and I don't even know what they're called because I got the starts, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago or something. And I've been replanting them. I guess you're not supposed to do that for some official reason, but I always did. And just grow them from the leftovers from the year before. But anyway, so finally this year I said, okay, I'm going to buy some new seed potatoes that are certified, disease-free, but I don't want to put them back in the same soil. So that's when I started researching the growing in pots thing and found out, well, first I watched a lot of people who had no idea what they were doing on YouTube, and they did not have good results because they just didn't know what they were doing. So they should have taken their video down because otherwise some people might follow their lead. But then I found the guy that really, he is basically a scientist, and he's done it very, very scientifically measuring. There goes Hariyatma. We can see her crawling away.
I'm back.
That's funny.
I was getting something.
You just can't get away without us seeing you.
Can't get away with anything.
Right. It reminded me of the story my mother used to tell about me when I was very young and I was still crawling. Apparently they had some company coming and they wanted me to stay in my bedroom or some back room or something, and I didn't want to stay in there because I didn't want to be left out of whatever the fun was. So I came crawling into the room backwards so they couldn't see me. So that was always one of the family jokes. So anyway, it didn't work for you either, Haryana. We saw you.
No, no. In my story, when I was little, is I rocked my crib all the way into the kitchen.
Wow.
It's like, hello, I want to eat.
Wow. So,
Don't bite.
so who can just tell us what's going on with you, or what kinds of food things or garden experiments or whatever is going on for you before we get into the little potato video?
Well, I'm planting on a hugel culture.
Oh,
You
good.
familiar with that?
Yep. Did you create the hugel culture bed for the first time this year?
No, last year we created it. My husband created it.
Did you plant it last year?
Some things, yes, but radishes and just minimal stuff, and really didn't do well at all last year. The flowers did great, though.
Interesting.
Yeah, the flowers did good at the bottom because the flowers are growing in tires, which, you know, I had a big controversy about with my husband about putting the tires down, but he won in the end. So we're planting, in those I'm planting flowers, and in the rest of the mounds I'm planting vegetables. So the vegetables won't be near the tires.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to keep us posted on how that works. Why don't you tell everybody what a hugel culture bed is? Hey, Kristen.
Yeah, my husband is the authority on that. You want to tell what a hugel culture is?
Oh. Hello. Basically means hill culture. German from Germany, and basically I dug maybe 1 or 2 feet deep in the ground and put some logs in, and then build up maybe to 5 feet from where the logs first are, and then I put on top of the logs, I put branches on, and then little stuff like soil and compost, and actually I put a lot of wood chips and wood sawdust in, and we're going to plant them there. But there's 2 parallel hills.
Okay.
Yeah, and what I did is I started those microgreens and lettuce, and way back when you were talking about that, and now they're really big and flourishing, so I stuck those outside.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The microgreens, did you separate them out into individual plants?
Yeah, I did.
Wow. You didn't eat them. Hey, Debbie Richards, I see you're here. Why don't you turn on your camera?
I didn't know I had to have my makeup and my hair done for this.
Well, of course.
We love you anyway.
Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Oh my God, you're
It's
so
way
cute.
more fun when we can see each other.
Well, I won't be able to stay too long. My grandbaby just showed up from Fairbanks, so.
Aw.
But I was sad that I keep missing it, and I looked at the clock and went, "Oh, I'm gonna go jump on. Excuse me." So I left those guys downstairs.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you were able to make it. We're all sitting here eating. Not all of us, but many of us are.
Yeah.
So I just cooked my mom and myself those Beyond Burger.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah, those are pretty good. I was pleasantly surprised.
Well,
I had one down in Vancouver, and I kept watching the stock actually, and I thought, well, it can't be all that great. And then I actually had one for breakfast, and it was pretty good. And then I actually saw them at Fred Meyer, and they had the Beyond Burger, so I grabbed some. They're kind of expensive, but I thought I wanted to try them.
I don't know. I haven't seen.
Oh, was that the one in Wasilla or the one in Palmer?
I got it in Palmer.
Oh, okay.
The sausages are good. The sausage is good, and in the past week, Fred Meyer has them 2 for 1.
Really?
I didn't get the 2 for 1.
Beyond Burger.
Oh,
Yeah, try them out.
they've gone and brought them. Mm-hmm.
Well, who else wants to share what's going on in your life? If there's anything other than waiting for the next Zoom call.
I'd like to know how to spell that type of gardening that Hari Atma is doing.
Hugelkultur.
No, it's Hugelkulture.
Yeah.
Would you spell that again?
Hugelkulture. And basically
It's a
would act like nutrition and sugars for the plants, plus it holds a lot of water.
Yeah, we have a couple of hugelkultur beds that we built, man, how long ago? Probably 15 years ago.
How do they work?
Not as well as the rest of the garden.
Oh.
But I like the idea. We actually built 3 of them because one of them is our perennial flower bed is also a hugelkultur bed. So Amy saw that, the crescent shaped hugel, yeah, and where it was humped up. So started with, but you need to start with rotten logs, wood. Everything should be rotten as much as possible because you're wanting it to break down. You don't want good, strong wood. You want to be rotten. And then other organic stuff, and then you put some topsoil at the top so that you can plant in it. But you could look it up. It's a permaculture technique.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can look that up on YouTube, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a load of chicken manure last year, and so I added that to it.
Mm-hmm.
And sawdust.
Yeah.
Well, would you guys like to watch this little 11-minute video, and then we can always talk about it? I'm just going to share my screen, and we can still hear. You should probably mute yourself because we'll be able to hear your noises at your house if you don't mute yourself.
And each of them works really well. But in this episode, I'm going to give you 7 reasons. The potato plant has sustained our nation for millennia, and it's an invaluable crop within the garden. Now, there are lots of different ways to grow the humble potato plant, and each of them works really well. But in this episode, I'm going to give you 7 reasons for growing potato plants in containers. I'm Tony O'Neill, and this is UK Here We Grow. And on this channel, we deal with all things gardening, poultry keeping, and beekeeping. If you want that perfect garden to relax in, or want to grow your own nutrient-dense foods, then start now by clicking the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified each time I release new content just like this. You can ask any gardener who grows his own food which vegetable that they have to grow every single year, and the humble potato plant will probably be in the top 3. And the reason for this is because they are fantastic for the amount of effort that's put into them. They grow really well, and they produce tubers that can be stored right throughout the year to allow you to be able to eat through the winter. And this is an ideal situation for the gardener because that's where we ideally want to be, is to be able to grow enough food to last us until next year. And it's ideal for those people who want to be more self-sufficient. Over the years, I've grown potatoes in loads of different ways. I've grown potatoes in buckets, I've grown potatoes in bags, and I've grown potatoes in the ground. But my most preferred method of growing potatoes is in containers. So why do I like growing potatoes in containers so much? Well, there are 7 reasons why I prefer it and why you should consider growing potatoes in containers too. Number one, so the traditional way of growing potatoes is that you would typically dig a trench and then you would lay some manure in that trench and some feed, and then you would place in your potatoes into that trench, and then you would backfill that trench. Later on, you would have to mound up that trench. That's a huge amount of work, and it's backbreaking, and not everybody can bend over and dig these trenches, and it's just not for me. Now, growing potatoes in containers means that you can either put the container on the ground, there is no digging, or you can lift it up onto a counter and you can then start to plant your potatoes. So simple as putting in a little bit of compost and some feed and your seed potatoes, and then filling the container right the way up, and you're done. Apart from feeding and watering throughout the year, that's it. Whereas with the traditional method of digging trenches, you have to keep revisiting and hoeing up the potatoes to keep them safe and to stop them from popping out the surface. Now, I know some people that grow in containers, they plant them as if they would with a trench. They put a little bit of soil, put the potato in, wait for it to grow, then put some more in, wait for it to grow. There's no need for none of that. Just fill the container right up and you're done. Number two, you can plant your potatoes much earlier. Now, potatoes are not frost hardy, so you have to wait when you're planting outside in trenches to be able to plant the seed, because if the homes come up and the frost hits them, then it kills the top of the potato off. Now, with planting in containers, you can literally plant early as you like, and you can leave them inside a greenhouse or a polytunnel, and when the homes come through, you can cover them over with fleece when the threat of frost appears. And the great thing about this, if you have a nice day like this that we typically get in early spring but is cold, you can still move them out if you wish to get some more sun. But keeping them in the greenhouse or the polytunnel is the best bet. And when all frost is past, then we can move them out. Now, frost dates, they are different for every single place on the planet, and you would have to judge yours by that frost date. But typically, it would give you about 4 or 5 weeks worth of growth before you could plant them out in the soil. That's a huge advantage. Tip number 3. Now, when grown in containers, the soil warms up much quicker, and that's because they're black in colour and they absorb the heat better. And because they're outside of the ground, they're not trying to heat up all of the area, it's just heating up what's inside here. So it's much quicker, and that gives the potatoes more time to establish. It also restricts the root growth within the container, and that means that the plant has no option but to absorb the water and the nutrients that you've put in that container. Now, by planting in the ground, those root zones are free to roam, and they can be pushed out past the feed zone sometimes. So the plant may not necessarily be taking up all the nutrients that it could possibly be taking up. And if you doubt what I'm saying to you, I'll put a link in the description and up here for you, which will show you an experiment I performed last year. And I was able to double the yield over potatoes grown in a container or in the ground. And it is a massive eye-opener for anybody who typically grows in the ground. Now, I know some of you will disagree with me on this, but I have been able to show over a number of years that that is the case. And I have the video footage to show that. And the reason I can say this with confidence is because I ran that same experiment for 3 years. I have all the videos on the playlist for you to be able to watch. So make sure you go and have a view of those after this video. Number 4. Although you may not think it, watering is much more efficient because you're only watering the root zone, and the plant can take up what is required because the root zone is compressed. And it also has a smaller surface area, which means that there's less evaporation for the water to go. In the ground, soil wicks the water away from the root zone, and there's also a bigger area for evaporation. And when it comes to watering, you may not even be watering the root zone because the plant's root zone is free to go in all directions. So you may not be applying water where it's required. Number 5, you're less likely to catch disease also. Now, there are loads of diseases for potatoes, such as alternaria. Now, alternaria is a soil-borne disease, otherwise known as early blight. And there are loads of other soil-borne diseases and pests, such as wireworm, that you can cut out of the equation altogether when growing in containers. Instead, in containers, you're using compost, whether that's shop-bought or homemade. And over the years, I've had loads of you come to me and say, wow, what an expensive way to grow potatoes. But I will put a link in the description below to my last compost video where I show you how to make all the homemade compost you could need at home. And this is high quality compost, and you can use that to fill these containers, which is totally free from your own garden. Now, even if you had to buy your compost because you didn't have it to start with, that's still a good investment. And the reason for that is that you can reuse this medium over and over again, providing you haven't had blight. And all you need to do is put additional feed into the compost, because after all, it's just a medium. And once you can no longer use it for potatoes, or it's not giving you the growth that you would require, then you can put it into your garden beds. And by putting it in your garden beds, that's improving the soil structure in your garden as well. So those who tell me that it's a waste to buy compost and use it this way just don't understand how the garden's supposed to work synergistically with itself. Number 6. Now, if you've had storms like we've had this year in the UK, then all the other gardeners around you are catching blight. You can simply pick up your containers and take them back to the greenhouse or the polytunnel, and that will help to prevent blight. If you're in the garden, you can't do that. They are tied to the ground. You can't just lift them and take them somewhere. Not only that, when they're in containers, if you need some spare space in a bed or something like that, you can simply just pick them up and move them, or even put them onto a patio where you wouldn't normally be able to grow crops, and then that would free up veg for other things. They are fantastic, especially if you were short of space. Number 7, last but not least, is the harvest. Now, when growing in the ground, you've got all the back-breaking work that you had from putting them in, because it's just the reverse of putting them in. You have to dig them all out, and I hate this, and I tell you why. You usually stab half of the potatoes with a fork or cut them in half with a spade, or you miss them entirely, which means that your crop is less, and you get volunteer potatoes next year coming up in areas of the garden you don't want them to. With containers, it's much, much easier. You can either pick the container up and put it into a wheelbarrow, or you can just tip it over where it stands. And it's easy to pull out all the potatoes. None are missed and none are stabbed. So you get a fantastic crop, and you've got clean compost with no potato tubers coming up in ground that you don't want next year. After harvest, we can think about drying off the potatoes and storing them. Now, I have a video which I'll put below which shows you exactly how you can store your own potatoes right through the winter so that you can eat them until the next harvest, and how to save your own seed potatoes too, which will save you money next year when it comes to buying seed potatoes, because they are very expensive to buy. And if you can save your own, well, that's just a bargain, because those plants are already acclimatized to this area. Question of the day: how do you grow your potatoes and why? Let's get some conversation starting below so that all the new growers around can make a more informed decision on how they feel the best way to grow potatoes is. We already know why I prefer containers, but I admit that growing potatoes can be done in almost any way, and the ground is very good. I just like the double yields I get out of the containers and how much easier it is for my efforts. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, you can subscribe here. And if you want to see the results to the ground over the potato experiment, then that video is right here for you. I'm Tony O'Neill. This is UK Here We Grow. And remember, folks, you reap what you sow. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
All right. What did you think of that? Yeah, I like how he gave the different reasons to do it like
Yeah.
that.
Do you think there's any danger? I'm guessing not, but in growing the potatoes next to plastic, I've just been, watching Michael Greger on plastic and utensils and all, and it just made me think about that.
Yeah. I guess we don't know. But, I definitely wouldn't want to do them in tires because I know that tires,
Yeah, that doesn't
and
sound.
like a creosote type of, sometimes people will use creosote logs, but I wouldn't do that. Railroad ties. But I don't know if I would suppose that it's not the best thing in the world, but I don't know, how bad of a thing it is. So, I mean, there's a lot of other things that we're growing in pots too. So I guess we'd have to.
And the caveat is if you buy them in the store, you don't know how they're, grown. They might be grown in a bucket, in a plastic bucket for all we know.
Probably not, but
probably not.
I take a lot of buckets.
Take a lot of buckets. But if you want to watch it, he does have that other video where he shows the comparison. He did it very scientifically of putting them in exactly the same number of potatoes with the same kind of soil, with the same kind of fertilizers and all that. And then he dug them out at the end of the year, and he had almost twice as much weight doing in the pots, which is just amazing.
Oh, that is amazing. Wow.
Is that video on the oaklandgardens.co.uk?
No, that was where he got his pots. It's go to Simplify Gardening on YouTube, and that has all of his videos. And so if you go to that, you can just, I think he calls it the potato experiment or something. He has a lot of very interesting ones. But anyway, it's Simplify Gardening on YouTube. But he obviously is not just somebody he is experimenting, but he's experimenting very, very scientifically, and he's had the same result for 3 times in a row. So,
ironically, Sid was just planting potatoes today. With the back-breaking method. He was out breaking his back.
Right.
You could use any other kind of container. You don't have to use plastic. I'm sure you could use, any other material container that you.
Right. If you built a wooden box, or
how about a concrete one?
Be kind of hard to lift.
Heavy turnover.
There are some things that they're selling, I know now, called potato bags. They're probably made of, I don't know, they're probably not all natural materials though.
Polypropylene.
Yeah. But you can grow them in a bag.
Has anyone ever tried unbleached muslin, or to line a box like the bottom with unbleached muslin? I was gonna do that one time, long story, but my kids threw that out.
How about burlap?
Yeah, like it would be the same idea as that.
The only thing is, I think you'd be watering constantly, I think, because you wouldn't be able to hold any moisture in at all.
Oh yeah.
But I guess if you did keep watering, maybe that would be okay. But I know that potatoes do like quite a bit of water, and that's one of the things I think that I haven't done well in my garden beds, is getting enough water on them at the right time of the year. So this way, it's, I don't know, we'll, at our next potluck, if we're doing it the same way, maybe I'll be able to show you, how tall the potatoes are getting. And maybe you'll have some potatoes in pots too. But you could see Yes.
On Channel 11, they did a little segment where they demonstrated planting potatoes in a chicken wire cage.
Oh, huh.
So they put straw down at the bottom, and then they kind of put straw on the sides, and they kind of put some dirt in there and some potatoes, and then, you know, kind of did that going up.
Yeah.
And then I guess in the fall, when you want to harvest your potatoes, you can just clip those wires that you tied it together with, and you can, you know, the whole thing would. But if it is a problem to keep them wet enough, moist enough, I think that would be a disadvantage of that little system.
Yeah, all of those where they don't have sides might make it more difficult to keep them wet enough. But, you know, I don't know, you know, you can just try it. Stick a potato in there.
Well, growing them in bags, maybe you could stick the bag in water. Stick the whole shebang in a bucket of water for, I don't know, 15 minutes or so, and then take it out.
You know, these are going to be pretty heavy. The pots that we have they're not something that I can move around. I mean, the smaller ones I can, but we've got, you know, some big pots, and when they're full of soil and the soil is wet, they're heavy.
Need a hand truck.
Yeah, we moved them to where they are with a hand truck because I planted them over by the greenhouse, and then we wheeled them down to where they live now. I loved his idea of starting them in a greenhouse or in a polytunnel or something so that you could start early, because usually it takes quite a while for the potatoes to sprout above ground when you plant them out in the soil, because the soil is cooler and they just take a long time to come up. You know, I look and look, are they there? Are they there? Once they start coming up, then it's usually pretty fast. But they take a long time. But to get them started ahead of time indoors, that would be really great. Amy.
Well, I was thinking, you know, the same thing. It takes a long time for those potatoes to come up to the top. So really, we could plant 3 weeks outside before the danger of frost is over, because it takes them 3 weeks to come up.
Yeah.
Right. We could.
So maybe May 1st. Yeah.
But if the soil is cold, it will be slower to, you know, those black pots, like he said, they will warm up faster than the soil in the ground. Even just a plain old raised bed warms up faster than it always warms up faster than the regular soil. Debbie?
I gotta go.
Okay.
Getting busy here. Thanks for letting me drop.
Thanks for joining us. Have fun with your grandbaby.
Thanks.
Enjoy your grandbabies.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Well, you know, one thing that's so cool about gardening is we can just experiment. You know, with something like this, you can experiment with 1 or 2 potatoes in whatever kind of a container you want to try. And you haven't, you know, put out a lot of money or effort to do it. So why not try it? So.
Yeah.
And then we'll all have our own experiment. But the one thing is that I really understood is just go ahead and cover them up with a whole bunch of the soil, compost, and then you don't have to add any more to them. So for the people who may not have ever grown potatoes before, I just want to explain why you have to keep a lot of soil, piling soil on top of potatoes. Because when the potatoes themselves start to form in the ground, they hump up and they push through the ground, and then the potatoes are exposed to the sun, and then they turn green. And that is not, you're not supposed to eat the green potato because it's got some sort of toxin in it. If you peel that off, it's also bitter tasting. So if you get just a little bit of green covering, it's not the end of the world. But you want to try to prevent that. And that's why you need to keep covering your spuds as they're showing. And if you plant them way deep in the ground, in the regular ground, you could do the same thing that you do in the pots, but the soil would be a lot colder there, and you'd have a lot of digging to get them out instead of just kind of tipping the pot up. So I've tried covering them like with hay instead of soil, because we use hay on our compost bins, and so we always have old hay. And as long as you, but again, since there's sunlight can sometimes get through there, and so sometimes we'd still get a little bit of green.
So Delisa, if we're putting ours in 5-gallon buckets, should we fill them like half full or something so that we have room to do that mounding?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay, I get it.
And I actually, when I watched his video about how to plant them, he's got another video that goes into way more detail about the actual planting process. You really saw, you know. But anyway, he goes into a lot of detail. But I asked him about using a 5-gallon pot, since I didn't want to spend a lot of money on other pots, and we've got a whole bunch of 5-gallon buckets. So anyway, he said yes, but only put 1 potato in it.
Okay.
1 potato, which, yeah, it seems like, wow, how are we ever gonna, but he's getting, when he puts 2 potatoes in his 10-gallon pots, he's getting like 15 pounds, 10, 15 pounds of potatoes from that.
Wow.
So, I mean, maybe we won't. He does put quite a lot of fertilizer, you know, food in his pots. He really feeds them. But anyway, yeah.
If the potatoes get the sunlight and turn green, if you cover them again, will that green go away? I know, you know, some conditions will change with the light again or lack of light.
No, I don't think so. I think they just stay green.
Okay, thank you.
So you said he puts food in, so he just puts kitchen scraps in when they're growing?
No, potato food, more like fertilizer, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but I haven't watched his composting video, but he was referring to that. So that'll be interesting to watch too, because he is, you know, a very well-informed gardener. So, and of course he's in the UK, so his conditions are different than ours, but there's a lot of things that are universal. And there's another, I told the people on the garden Zoom chat this morning, there's another garden guy in the UK that I love his YouTube channel. And his name is Charles Dowding, Dowding, Charles Dowding. And he's got like hundreds of thousands of followers on his YouTube channel. And he is just the nicest guy. You know, he's like what you'd want your uncle to be, or your grandpa or something. He's just such a nice person, but he's got an absolutely wonderful garden. And he does market gardening. He sells his produce, but he also loves his garden, and he loves the beauty of his garden, and he keeps it. He starts his plants in pots in the house or in a greenhouse, and then he puts them out in his garden. And he doesn't have a real big garden. I think it's less than an acre, I think. And so anyway, it's just in his yard. And so he keeps it full all the time. As soon as he harvests something,
D-I-N-G.
he puts something else in that spot. So he never has bare, you know, he doesn't have bare patches in his garden. He just keeps it going. Oh, I think he's in Florida. No, he's in the UK too. I don't know. I've watched a lot of garden videos. There's something like in Florida that's not him. Anyway, I think you would like him. Charles Dowding, Dowding. I got it. I think you'd like him. He's a really nice guy. So anyway, if you have, you know, even those of you who may not really have much of an interest in doing the hard work of gardening, this looks like a pretty easy way to just like have a pot or two that you could grow some potatoes. And if anybody lives anywhere near me and you need some certified disease-free seed potatoes, I have some extras that I'd be happy to share.
I might take you up on that, Delisa.
Yeah, I'll take you up too, Delisa.
Okay, well, just get in touch and let me know when you're coming. There you go. And we just need to work on telekinesis, Mary Micah. I'd be happy to send some your way, but I am not good at telekinesis at all. I just not good at it.
So, I wanted to ask if anybody's ever grown Cobea scandens, cup and saucer vine. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is it's a lot of bang for your buck. And I've grown it like up over the house, like 20 some feet.
What is it?
Cobea.
Cup and saucer, Cobea scandens.
I never
And
heard
it's a bellflower. And here,
Oh,
it's
bellflower. Okay.
well, I mean, that's what it looks like. It looks like a, not combine, but but I mean, I would think it would grow really well there. And so people generally don't know about it. It's a long vine thing, and it grows really fast, and it really grabs on really fast, and it'll grow up the whole side of your home, and fill it up.
Is
totally.
it edible or is it a flower?
I don't know that it is edible.
Okay.
I think it's just a flower. We had it years ago, and it did just exactly what you said. It covered the whole side of our garage wall, and it was beautiful. I don't know how we've forgotten about it, but thanks for the reminder.
Yeah.
So is it invasive?
I don't understand what it's called.
Cobea.
Cobea.
Cobea scandens, cup and saucer vine. It does look cup like. I don't know why they say and saucer. I guess the saucer is the leaves.
Okay.
But you know, it's an incredible vine. It's the best one I've ever found in Alaska.
Does it need sun?
Yeah, it does better with sun, but too much sun, it can take a filtered area.
Mary, did you start it from seed?
I have started them from seed. They're hard to germinate, but I used to buy, they just sold up greenhouses up here, but I would buy it where they cut it back. And so I never have taken it, I've never have cut it back. I don't really know how to do a lot of things. I took a whole long vine in the winter. I just should have cut it off. But in the lower 48, they'll grow them year round, and they'll get more woody stems and last for years and get ginormous feet. And
Okay, well, I don't know about that.
It sounds like it's invasive. Seriously, and my experience with invasive plants is don't plant things like that unless you really want to have it taken over your area, because I've had some really bad experiences with invasive stuff.
Yeah,
it takes away the natural flora. It's not healthy for Alaska to have invasive plants.
I just screwed in a container.
Oh.
So, yeah, in a container.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
And stop the
okay.
seeds from going everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, but something.
Yeah, that's good.
Fed by roots.
Power till the end of the season, so not much chance of it going to seed, I would think.
And by the way, if anybody would like some tomato plants to plant, I have some extras.
Yeah, love some.
They're a little invasive.
Tomato plants?
They spread. That's why I have more to share. So, Kristen, did you say? Okay. So just be sure, those of you that wanted something, just get in touch with me afterwards and schedule a time to come out.
I'm actually driving up to Denali to do the drive-in.
Oh, good.
Up on Monday. I'll be headed back south on Wednesday, so I could stop on Wednesday.
Okay, that sounds good. Wednesday afternoon. I'm busy in the morning, but I'd be done by probably around 1 or so.
I'm stopping over at the fair. I don't know if anybody's interested in this part because it's not food, but the fair is selling all of the plants.
I have
Would have
flowers, right?
Decoration. So I ordered some flats from that, and so I'll be stopping there to pick up plants on the way south. So yeah, I can definitely be in the afternoon because I'll be leaving Denali in the morning.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, just get in touch with me when you're close, and I'll give you my address and all that. Okay. Something else I wanted to. Yeah, Amy.
Hey, you know, in the garden chat this morning, you showed us your garden and all of that. Do you grow zucchini at all, or is that something you've tried and given up on?
No, I do. I have some out there planted now. I grow enough to satisfy us, but I don't have such a bumper crop that I'm giving it away to every total stranger like a lot of people do, because you know it can really be prolific. But I do always grow it. I think it prefers a little bit warmer weather than we tend to have, but I've got 5 plants out there, and I've got 4 more starts that I decided I wanted more than that. But you know, most people don't need more than a couple of plants because they're pretty prolific usually. But I also eat them when they're small. I don't let mine get big because, you know, they go like one day they're like this, the next day they're like this, and the next day they're like this. And they're much tastier and more tender when you get them small. So I eat them when they're pretty small, which is one reason why we're not overrun with them, because, you know, if you wait till they're big, then you can't even eat a whole one, you know. But anyway, I keep them, harvest them pretty small.
We'll have to talk about zucchini next spring because I've never been successful here in Alaska.
Really? Okay. Huh. Maybe you should try growing them in a pot. I've never tried that, but you know, why not? I wanted to mention something that's a totally different subject, and I can't remember who it was that told me earlier today, but might have been Sue. There's a documentary that's out now called Code Blue.
Oh,
and it apparently you can rent it on Amazon now, and it's the story of Dr. Sarai Stancic, who is now a vegan lifestyle medicine doctor. And she, when she was in medical school, she was diagnosed with MS, and it got so bad that she was pretty much confined to a wheelchair, and she's still trying to have a medical practice and all of that, but it was really rough. And then she read something about the magic of blueberries or something, and then she started doing research, and she found out it wasn't just blueberries, it was whole plant foods. So she switched to a whole plant food diet, and she reversed her MS. And she is very healthy. She still is very she doesn't call herself cured, but she is symptom free apparently, and she actually ran a marathon, and she used to be in a wheelchair. So, and it's like, and she did this with a whole plant food diet. So anyway, her story, and I haven't seen the documentary yet, but it's called Code Blue. So, and it was not available until just this spring on, you know, places like Amazon, because it was just a controlled thing where you had to rent it and have a showing and all of that. So it was just recently available. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that, and I think it would be one that you probably would enjoy too. And oh, if you haven't seen it yet, Fantastic Fungi is also a documentary that came out. So Kristen, you saw it. Kendra, did you see it? It's wonderful. If you're familiar.
Yeah, I have seen it. It's very good. Yeah.
And Paul Stamets is a Mr. Mushroom expert, and he's in that, and I just loved it. And I don't know whether you can see it on Amazon or Netflix, but we watched it on Vimeo, Vimeo. It's great, very much worth watching. And the photography is completely amazing because he has all these time-lapse pictures of the mushrooms coming out of the ground and just blooming like flowers, you know. It's amazing. And there's a lot of very interesting information too, but you know, like mushrooms can save the world. I think they better hurry up.
Yeah.
You know, Delisa, this is Kendra. It actually brings up something I was wondering when I was listening to the pot talk on the potatoes there. And I actually have grown potatoes in a 5-gallon bucket one year, just as an experiment. It worked really well. But I'm wondering about how good the soil microbiome is, you know, because I don't know how much of that diversity of fungi and parasites and all that would actually exist in something as small as a bucket.
Right. I would wonder the same thing. Apparently it's not hurting his yield.
Yeah.
It's probably not the ideal, but it certainly seems to be effective.
Well, yeah. And if
Seeded composter with mycorrhizal whatever.
fungi, yeah.
Yeah, I would think it would help it.
Well, and he puts a lot of food in with it, you know, potato food as opposed to our food. So he is feeding them, but I know they're also, you know, the potato is feeding itself. That's what the potato is. It's food for the plant to grow up, and then it starts to make its own food from photosynthesis. So that's one reason why I don't cut my potatoes and just
turn off the water.
A little piece, because
Because
it's really absorbing the nutrients that are in the potato while it's growing.
Oh.
Yeah.
You could use aerated compost tea too.
What's that?
That's what I was going to mention, is maybe compost tea would help.
Right.
Yeah.
Irradiated.
Mm-hmm.
Aerated.
Oh, aerated.
Yeah.
So
Well, like I say, it seems to be working very well, and in terms of whether it's affecting the nutrients in the potato, I doubt that it would be something that would be noticeable to anybody. You know, I think it's probably a pretty good way to do things. But yeah, I think about that when I plant in pots. Yeah.
I forgot to ask you this morning about how much azomite you use, like say per potato or per 5 gallon.
I'm just, you know, I'm very unscientific. I'm very much not like
this much, right?
I grab a handful.
I see.
A handful of this and a handful of that, and I swish it around and bless.
That's what the experts do, right?
Yep. Give it my blessing and say, good luck.
She'll be out there regularly to talk to you and sing to you, and
yes,
everything will be happy.
I do.
And show them love. That's the
right.
key we heard today.
Yes, I gave them the love talk today. Yes, I think that's very important. Right up there with the mycorrhizal fungi. It's part of yeah. Okay, anybody else have something to add or questions or share with the group? Or yeah.
I wanted to thank Charlie for that wonderful video he put together.
Oh.
You know, the wildlife and the landscapes. I sent it off to a dozen friends of mine. And
great.
I thought it was great.
It was very nice.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. Did everybody here see that, his video?
Yeah.
I saw it last time. It was wonderful. I'm going to put it on my Facebook page.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's if you still have the video, any of the past emails from me, I had a link in there to his video, so it's up on YouTube, so you can see it there. Yeah. So Sue, you didn't see it. You weren't here, but Charlie is a nature photographer, and he made a beautiful 26-minute video. So
I'll check it out.
yeah. Okay. Okay.
I even sent it to India.
Wow.
Friends there, a friend who's a photographer there said he just really, really enjoyed it.
Great.
Yeah. Well, I know that makes him happy to know that other people can see what he has seen and what he's taken many hours to do.
Yeah, it's one of the joys of my life.
It really showed.
Yeah.
That was the love thing.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Anybody else want to share? Ask any questions? It's so nice to just be able to see each other and, you know.
So,
not have to worry about COVID-19.
Right. Mary.
well, so if it goes back to regular, this is my last chance. So I just wanted to say, yeah, a couple years ago when the government got shut down, so I sat there for 4 days and watched in my cuddle duds, just sat there and watched movie after movie. There's one on Amazon Prime. They're all free, but it's he's a geologist in Canada, and his son, like his athlete's son, came down with something like multiple sclerosis, and so basically all the drugs in it was like taking away his life, and the treatment. So he began to research things and read because it was his son. And so he found out through diet, you know, how you could reverse this. And so the whole story is that they tried to block his website and everything. He tried to share this information with people. And I can't even remember if it's all vegan, but yes, that's the majority of it is the plant-based wolf. But they actually tried to block him from getting this truth out. But there's several videos, I'm sure everybody knows, but there is one about MS. I'm sure it's MS. And it's this Canadian geologist who did for his son. It is remarkable. I think the last time I heard that all of the cardiologists or most of the cardiologists in Alaska were vegans. If anybody knows anything about that. Have you heard that?
I don't know.
I have heard that.
I know that some
I don't.
are.
I have friends that work for the Alaska Heart Institute, and I have not heard them talk about their cardiologist. But I will tell you this, I went to a cardiology conference in February in Utah, and pretty much every cardiologist that lectured said to encourage your patients to eat a plant-based whole food diet.
Wow.
That's wonderful.
And I'm noticing that a lot of the medical conferences that I do go to, at least one lecture person will say that same thing. And I've noticed that over the last couple of years, probably.
So things are beginning to shift, thankfully.
Yeah.
Slowly. Yeah. That's great. Well, last year in October, the Alaska Native Diabetes Conference, I guess that's the name of it, invited me to speak on plant-based diets. And so I did a presentation. Sue was there, and that's how we got reconnected. But I was definitely the only speaker there that I heard that had that perspective at all. Of course, now heart disease, people are beginning to catch on to that a little more than they are with diabetes, but it's just as true with diabetes, and people just don't know it yet. But
absolutely,
yeah. But anyway, it is changing, and you know, it's the energy of each one of us as we live this lifestyle is helping the shift, even if we're not in a position of, you know, obvious influence like a doctor or somebody like that. But just the fact that there's a growing number of people who are making that choice ourselves, we're helping to energetically shift the balance. And so each one of us in our own habits and then with our own modeling of this lifestyle is an important part of the process. And then when we have people that are in positions where they actually are talking to, you know, people about their health, you know, getting them to say this is like, it's a miracle. I still can hardly believe it when I'm saying, Mike, they're saying it right out loud in a conference. Wow.
They are.
That is so exciting. So then the only question is, how do we bring everybody on board and make it seem like it's a doable thing and not such a impossible chore,
Delisa, were you asked to show up to that diabetes conference this past fall, or did you approach ANMC?
They approached me.
Well, if they approach you again, you need to make sure that they give you more time. Did you notice? I think you didn't get as much time. Like nobody could ask questions.
Well, I think I had an hour, and I think everybody had an hour. But yeah, I asked them last year how they determined I don't know if they're even going to have it this fall, but they told me that they probably wouldn't be asking me again this year because they get different people all the time. But if they would just get another plant-based person, that would be really nice, because there was a lot of interest. I had a lot of people coming to the table and showing an interest in it. So yeah. So if they would hear that every year, that would be nice. And then the rest of the people might go, maybe there's something to this. All right. So Kendra, thanks for joining us. I see you're getting ready to head.
Yeah, thanks. I need to head out.
Okay. Well, I guess unless there's some more chatting that we want to do, I'm not in a hurry, but if other people are ready to call it a night and go watch Code Blue or something, or Fantastic Fungi, or just go out and show some love in the garden, whatever.
I have to go pack to get ready to drive up.
Oh, well, that sounds like a wonderful trip.
Yeah, have a good trip.
Are you camping, or are you staying in a facility?
So they just put these special drive-in passes online. So I grabbed one for Tuesday, and I booked Riley Creek Campground. So I'm going to drive up Monday, camp there overnight, so I'm there for my drive-in time early in the morning. And then when I have to be out of the park at 10 p.m. I'm going to camp overnight, and then in the morning I'll come up, start to drive back down.
Okay.
No,
showers are open there? The shower, the campground, is the shower open?
I don't know. It's not long enough of a trip for me to worry about taking a shower.
Wouldn't be for me either.
Like 5 days here staying at home, so.
Right. And I don't care if you're dirty when you come, because I'll be dirty.
I didn't think about that part.
Well, it's okay. It's totally okay at our house.
Yeah, it tends to keep the mosquitoes away, I think, when I don't smell.
The social distancing, huh?
Social distance from mosquitoes.
Are those passes still available by any chance?
I don't know. They had limited numbers of them, but if you go online to recreation, I think it's recreation.com or recreation.gov. Even the National Park Service Denali site had a link to it, but there's look it up. There's an app for this thing. Let's see, there's a new one. Try and find an app on my phone. There's too many apps. Recreation.gov. I don't know if you can see it. It's backwards, but it's a really simple app. And you can search the very top bar, says enter destination. You put in Denali, it'll autofill because it's all the national park stuff. And you can see if there's anything still left.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So they had said that there were going to be drive-ins to Eielson as well as to Teklenika. And I think that they're not going to release the Eielson ones until after maybe after June 1 or July 1, because the times for those were late July through September. So the only things that were available on Monday when I booked it was Techlanica. Yeah. But I'm excited to be able to do a drive-in instead of sit on the bus.
Sounds wonderful. Sounds really wonderful.
I hope I get to be able to do Eielson again, like late August or September, to see the change in the scenery the same season and same year. I mean,
Right.
Well, you know, the road problems, Midway, yeah, road has been
Washed out.
very unstable there, and it's really dropped a lot. I think it was something like 6 feet or something. I haven't heard anything here, but there's serious issues with the road. So,
yeah, I know that they're able to do a lot more work this year to get it corrected because there's that much less demand.
yes.
Instead of, just not having anything happen, they can control. So there's only certain days that they're allowing people to do drive-in. I don't know that there's any bus service besides that.
And the reason they're not opening up the, opening it up to go to Eielson until July 1st is they don't know how many buses they're going to be having on the road. So they have to wait and see to plan how many cars they can allow.
I thought it had something to do with finishing the actual road construction itself, but I don't know. I don't work for them, so I'm not in control of it. I'm just happy to drive to Techlanica. Yeah. So on that note, I'm gonna go get to packing.
Okay, enjoy, and I'll see you Wednesday afternoon.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll be in touch about what's going to happen for our June potluck, but we may be back here again, and then maybe we can all look at each other's pots. All right. Well, thank you guys for coming out.
Stay safe.
Good night.
Bye. Bye.
Goodbye.